Greetings, beloved Star Child Rising. You are in Christina's Corner, and I am Christina. Good evening. So glad that you're able to join us for this podcast. The podcast interview concept is something that I've had on my mind for a while now, and my guides just finally nudged me to say, just do it. So here we are. And I'm so honored to be able to share with you my first guest. Let me tell you about my first guest. My guest today is Brother Francis E. Revels-Bey, a consummate spiritual counselor, teacher, and numerologist. Since 1974, Brother Francis has interpreted over 40,000, yes, you heard that right, numerology charts and forecasts. In 78, he met and began studying with the numerologist you may have heard of, Lloyd Strayhorn. And in 82, Lloyd made Brother Francis his first guest on WLIB 1190 AM radio, Numbers and You. Welcome, Brother Francis.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
So glad to have you. So, Brother Francis's gift first came alive through a vision he received around the age of 8, and he'll talk about that in a second. His late mother, Mother Grace, became his first spiritual teacher while he was in college in the 70s. While working with her, he understood that she had strived diligently to have her own spiritual circle, thus the seeding of the Circle of Grace One. Brother Francis is the founder of his spiritual and metaphysical ministry and has been anointed by the angel of grace through divine providence. He teaches in private and group formats, in person and online. Um, his classes, workshops, seminars, currently in the Southwest where he resides. I believe it's Albuquerque, right?
Yes.
He receives and shares spiritual insight from himself and his spirit guides, which include his late ancestors, Mother Grace, his grandmother Charlotte, and his past life and current connections with beloveds Ahkenaten and Nefertiti and the Angel of Grace. Brother Francis has
Yes.
written 7 books. And don't worry, I'll put them on the description so you can be able to get to them as well as his information. So the name of the books are entitled Dancing in the Light of Divine Grace, The Wisdom of Ahkenaten as I Am, The Gift, The Wisdom of Nefertiti as I Am. Both of those books were channeled directly from them. The Age of Remembrance, the Divine I Am Presence in Selenite. Decree and it shall be. Speak as I am. The Key to Life is Numerology, your name and date of birth through the study of numbers. And finally, Radiant Heart, 7 amazing pathways to connect, activate, and communicate with your higher self. I
Yes.
am so pleased and honored to have you here. I just can't, I'm trying to hold it together, Brother Francis. Ever since I met you, okay, you've inspired me. And so the goal of these podcast shows for me is to bring on people who I feel are making an incredible impact in the world and who inspire me. And so that as we are people who are always and should be always ready to learn and explore more, I want to share the wisdom that I receive with anybody out here watching it, because although there's a lot that I don't know, one thing that I do know that is if you are drawn to watching this podcast, you are supposed to be watching it. Would you agree, Brother Francis?
So much so. There are no accidents.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get started. I have a few questions that I want to ask you.
Mhm.
And the first one is, you talked about the vision that you received at around the age of 8 that kind of kicked off your journey. Can you share a little bit about that and how that impacted you?
Yes. Well, I had as a child always had different kind of things happening, not understanding how to describe them, but I knew my mother knew something. My dad was holding back, and because my older brother, my dad was thinking he's a little out there. He's too young to be getting stuff like this, but my mother always patiently listened. So it was either spring or summer at the age of 8, which is about 1960 something. I had what I thought was a dream of a college campus that I was on playing volleyball. And so when I woke up, it was so vivid, I could smell the air. And I ran into my parents' bedroom. And the comical thing of my father was going like, again. I'm always bursting in without knocking. So my mother said, "What is it?" And I said, I stumbled and I said, I had a dream and I started to explain it to her. And she said, "That's not a dream, that's a vision." And of course, I started, "Well, what's a vision?" And she said, "Something that you will actually live, but you can't be chasing it. It's just going to come to you when you least
Mm,
expect it." So upon my graduation from high school in 1970, one of the guidance counselors had a cookout at their home and invited all of the black students at that time that he felt that would benefit from this particular college. He had an administrator there, and the name of the college was Bard College, upstate New York. And
right.
Bard is a very prominent private, awfully expensive now
Absolutely.
private college to go to. Back in the day when I went, I think tuition was like 4 grand. And now it's outrageously high. So, but anyway, I went, and the minute my mom and my brother dropped me off, I was walking around campus and I started having flashbacks. And a couple of the flashbacks happened behind the campus library. But when I came out of that area, I was standing on this long walkway between the library, the president's house, and the rest of the dorms and the administration building. And I think I was facing east, and that's when I saw the stone bench and the white gymnasium. And I said, "Oh my God, this is it, this is it, this is it, this is it." And that administrator, when she was there, she had the student manual that had the same thing, it was just in black and white. So when I saw that, I hit my mother. She said, "Boy, keep your hands to yourself." I said, "But this is the place." She's got the book, and that's the picture that I saw. So she said, "Be quiet, don't say anything. Let's see what she's got to say." But after I got there on campus, in the vision, I was playing volleyball in the vision. So 2 weeks into that in September, the kids were out there playing volleyball after dinner. And I'm sitting out there on the sidelines and I start to sweat. And I said, "Oh, let's see if I can sneak away." Because I'm feeling something coming up. And just as I stood up, someone said, "Hey, what's your name?" I said, "Francis." So, Francis, the side I'm standing on is upper college. We're junior and seniors. Go over there and take somebody's place because you need to play some volleyball instead of sitting on the side. You get over there with the freshmen and the sophomores. And so I obeyed. I went over there. And when you play the game, you're at the net, and I forget, right or to the left, somebody serves. And it was my turn to serve. And I took a deep breath and I said a prayer. I said, "If this is meant to be, it'll happen just like in the vision. I'm gonna hit this ball as far as I can, and it's supposed to come over my head and go down between some oak trees." Sure enough, I hit the ball and I was watching
Wow.
it go. go, go. And the thing went over my head, and I stood there. And the guy that told me to join the game, he said, Francis, why are you standing there? Go get the ball. And I said to myself, they haven't got the slightest idea what's about to happen. So I saw the ball go down a little grassy knoll in front of the administrative building between these two oak trees. And when I walked between them, I felt this web like energy, and my stomach started to hurt. And I bent over and I said to myself, this is what women feel like when they're pregnant and they're about to give birth. Your whole body is just aching and aching. And so I was breathing heavy, and I saw these penny loafers come up without raising my head with the coins. So this professor had on these penny loafers where you could stick coins in them. And he said, young man, what's your name? And I stuttered and I said, Francis. And I said, what's your name? And he says, Mario. And I go, yeah, Mario Bit without looking up.
Mm.
He said, wait a minute, how you know my name? I says, are you wearing, I can see you got corduroy pants on, but you got a corduroy jacket with black leather, elbow patches, window pane shirt. You kind of look like Groucho Marx with glasses. He said, how do you know that? I said, I looked up and I said, oh my God, this is him. I said, Mr. Big, I'm Francis Revels at that time. And I reached to shake his hand. I said, you and I have destiny together. I don't know what that is yet, but you and I have destiny together. And he gave me the ball back, and I threw the ball back. And the student says, where you going? I said, I'm going up to the dorm. I have had enough. And weeks after that, I started having a lot more dreams. Um, I saw more of that vision. But the ironic thing was, I would walk past people on campus and I started getting information on them out of the blue. I couldn't sit in the dining commons too long because, the Black and Latinos, I was getting information from them without saying anything. I go to the campus not the library, but the post office. And I would sit over there and I was saying, you know what? I have this little job on campus where I can help the postal lady. So guess what? I could sit in here and get all the names of these people as they come to me. And I would do that and I would type out my so-called reading for these students. I put their first name and their last initial, but I wouldn't label the envelope because I didn't want anybody to know it was me. And the campus newspaper was called the Bard Observer. So it was ideal. And after about a month or so, they wrote in the school paper, we either have a CIA or FBI agent on campus. Somebody knows everybody's business. We don't know who this person is, but they are as accurate as can be. So
Wow.
eventually, one Saturday, I'm sitting having breakfast with all the Black and Latinos in the back of the cafeteria, and everybody got up, disbanded, going either back to their dorm or just hanging out. And it was this elder brother named Cecil Chapman, and he would always read the New York Times. And I was saying, how do you get the Times up here? How do you get the New York Times way up here, 120 miles north of New York City? So he said, well, I got something to ask you. I said, what's that? He says, not for nothing, but how come the Black and Latinos don't get these letters? None of us got these letters. He says, I'm going to tell you something. I think you're that person. So I sat there like, I don't know. He said, look, you don't know this, but is your mother named Grace?
Whoa.
And I said, okay, don't tell nobody. I said, but how you know that? He says, your mother knows my mother. The only difference between you and I is I don't have it like you have it. But you used to come with your mother up to the Bronx. But you would never come into the house. And I would look out my bedroom looking at you, wishing you would come in the house. You would just sit out in the car. I said, yeah, that's right. He said, so your mom is like my mom, and I'm like you, but you got it stronger than me. Don't worry, I'm not gonna say anything to anybody. So I wrote back home and I told my mother what happened. She said, yeah, I know his mom. And she is a very gifted woman. She says, what do you think you should be doing? And I says, well, now that he knows, out of 700 students, I think I should stop. She said, yeah, that's a good idea. Don't do it anymore. Just try to keep things to yourself. And the next year, my third eye opened up on its own. I don't know if I triggered it. Very painful experience when it happened, but I was
Physically
able.
painful?
Oh yeah, it
Really?
felt like an axe splitting my head all the way up into the back.
Wow.
And I don't know how I triggered it, but I remember part of my freshman year, there was this guy who roamed the campus, an African American guy. He wasn't a student, but he called himself a military brat, meaning, he traveled with his dad and parents in the service, and he learned meditation. So he taught me how to meditate. And I think because it was so raw and direct, and I was really getting into it, that's when I may have triggered something. And my third eye opened up, and it was painful, it was joyful, it was out of this world, seeing things walk around me and writing 20-page letters home to my mother, like, what in the F is going on? And she would write back 2 pages, just pray, baby, you'll be okay. Learn how to fast. I'm saying, like, God. But that's how it began. And I was
Hmm.
an art major, and that helped too. Being into art kind of soothes the brain a little bit.
Yeah, and did you see, I see a lot of books behind you. Did
Yeah.
you start reading a lot of metaphysical stuff to try to understand why?
Well, that guy, Mario Bick, was the gift to me
Okay.
because my sophomore year, my junior year, my sophomore and junior year, he ran the college used bookstore. And I went to him to get a job, and he remembered me and he says, well, I think this is where our destiny begins. I'm an anthropology teacher, you're an artist, but yet you got something going on with yourself. He says, I want you to meet me here at my office. We're going to meet together on a Thursday night, and we're going to drive across campus to one of these big, extensive dormitories. And he says, I don't want you to say anything, but I want you to bring some bags. He says, and where we're going is where the alumni bring all of their books back to the college, and some of them donate all kinds of books. He says, Francis, where I'm going to take you, can't tell anybody, but you're going to go shopping. And so I came out with 4 big bags. I had 25 books per bag, and it was all on metaphysics,
Mm,
the
okay.
philosophy of metaphysics. I still didn't get it. I was trying to study philosophy, but it wasn't sinking in quite yet. But one of the
Mhm.
books that I did get was by Alan Watts, and it was a little yellow book with red and green lettering, and it says, "What is this?" So it was a little book, paperback book, from A to Z, explaining astrology, everything, right out to Zoroaster. And I would study that book inside and out. Then I found a book on palmistry, and then a little lightweight book on astrology, and I was like, these alumni have these books. And so I was getting all these books. And then when I got a little older and graduated from Bard as an art major, I hung out with one of my mom's younger brothers in South Plainfield, New Jersey. And all my mom's brothers can cook. So he was planning some event at his apartment. and he said he needed me to go with him to go shopping. And we went to this big flea market in Edison. And as we pulled up, there was this Italian guy with a bed of books. The first thing in my head, like Bard College, you can go in there and find books. So I went in there and I found a book, big, thick, unabridged book on astrology. I think I paid $5 for this old book and I took it home. None of it made sense to me. So I asked my uncle when was he going back, and he says, I'm going back in 2 weeks. Why? I said, I need to take that book back. And when I took the book back, I found the gentleman again. And he says, well, I didn't make enough money yet to give you any money back, but why don't you just take as many books as you can? I'll let you take 10 books. I said, well, what do the books cost? He says, man, there's books in here from 10 cents all the way up to $5. Take your pick. When I went in there, the first two books that fell in my hand was Kiro's Book of Numbers and Ken Avery's book on numerology. And then there was, of course, a book on palmistry, one on handwriting analysis. So it was about 5 books. Then I took them. And he said, that's all you want? I said, this is it, man. I know this is it. I don't need nothing else. And I went and sat in my uncle's car and I read the numerology books. I said, yeah, this is it. I don't need any astrology. And I read those books inside and out. And one day back on Long Island, went to get a job, couldn't keep a job. And one of my older cousins was visiting where my mom and I stayed with one of her older sisters. And it was so ironic. I was supposed to get a job at the employment agency, but something told me to leave. And now I didn't know it was my mother sending out a signal to leave because when I got halfway home, I thought about it. I said, she's something else. She be sending me signals. I got to pay attention. That wasn't a spirit talking to me. That was her sending me a telepathic message that there
You
was an
know.
opportunity at home.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got home, that older cousin was there. And he said, hey, your mother tells me that you do something with numbers. I looked at my mom like, yeah. And he says, well, I'm dating these two women. I need some information. So he gave me the information and I went halfway upstairs. He said, hey, how much you gonna charge me? And I said, okay, that's why I had to come home. I said, 2 for 37, thinking numerology. 2 for 37. So he gave me $40. I said, give me time. I don't type that fast. He gave me about a month, but I was done like in 2 weeks. The stuff was just flowing. I gave him the information. He turned around and gave me more money to do two more women. I said, you dating a neighborhood or something? What's going on here? But that got me started. And next thing I know, I was just in it, in it.
Right,
And I just
right.
loved it.
Just
And
took off.
it just took off. And meditation came back and I started without understanding much, started studying. My mom was a member of the Astara and Rosicrucians, and she would 2 years before she passed in 1981, so 1979. She took me all over Long Island, Westchester County, and especially Brooklyn to meet her friends. She says they will take good care of you if something happens to me. And we met a Haitian lady that was called Mom. And however, they were all waiting to meet me. And Mom taught me coffee ground reading, tea leaf reading. She really put me through my paces one particular day and then told my mother he has it, but he can't chase it. It'll come. And that was in 1979, summer of 79.
Wow, wow.
And
That
from
is
there,
so
just took
so
off.
so fascinating how you got your start, and now, 40,000 interpretations later, and still going really strong.
Hmm.
So it brings me to my next question. So the way we met, if you remember, um, I had been, before I met you, I had been feeling like I was nudged by Queen Nefertiti um, from um, a portrait that I had for many, many years. And I had a
Hmm.
picture of her and never knew who she was, never really looked in, always been interested in ancient Egypt, but never really delved into it. I would gather books and start to read, but never like really read. But since I started my meditation practice, I had been feeling and getting messages more and more from my spirit team. And I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that she was trying to get my attention. And so
Hmm.
I researched to find out who this picture was that I had that was trying to get my attention and found out it was Nefertiti. And I did some Googling and I came across your book that you had channeled, the book
Hmm.
called The Gift from her and Ahkenaten as well. And so when I reached out and found you um, to talk to you and found out that you actually do sessions and readings too, I knew that that was a connection that I was supposed to make. So, can you share how you connected to um, Akhenaten and Nefertiti, and were these the first two spirits that you have channeled with? And how did that come about? How did it feel? Did you know about them beforehand? Share some stuff about that, please.
Okay. Well, I used to, upon teaching what I call creative pathwork meditations, that I started back in 1996 on Long Island when I lived out there. Um, about 4 years after that, and moving around a little bit, I started doing my Circle of Grace One ministry, which is named after my mother. The number one represents the first grace, and her name is Grace. And the second grace would be what is referred to as the angel of grace. And I would give these things on the first Sunday of each month. And my students from all over New York, New York City, and New Jersey would converge to this basement apartment. And my landlord would say, "What are you how you gonna get all the people down there?" I said, "We'll make it happen. We'll split it up into three parts, three groups." And I was channeling ascended masters were coming to me. I didn't know how or why. I would just hear it and repeat what they say. But one day in 2006, while I was in New Jersey after I moved there, I was walking somewhere and something brushed me. And I'm saying, like, what's that? Because there's nobody on the street but me. And I kept looking and I kept looking, and I would look around and I would see like somebody looking at me, but I couldn't make it out. You see like someone in the shadow. So I'd walk to the shadow, nothing's in there. Yet I'd turn around, something's looking at me. So finally, I was talking to another student. She said, "Well, maybe it's Ramses." I said, "Nah, I don't feel like him." I said, "I'm not even studying anything with Egypt right now. I'm trying to figure out this indigenous Native American connection through my family. My mother being her mom being Cherokee and my father's side of the family being Blackfoot." But I was sitting in an apartment and I fell off to sleep. When I woke up, there was this huge head looking at me. And it literally frightened me because there were no lights on at that time in the apartment. I could just barely make the face out. And I said, okay, well, let me use my artistic ability and see if I can remember what I think what this face looked like. And then I said, I'm not going to do that. So what I basically did was, whoever's here, I need you to come to me in a dream so I could see you. And it was Akhenaten. And when he came to me, I said, you know, I don't like the way your name sounds in so many words. And he said, yeah, it's not Ahkenaten, it's Ahkenaten. And he says, and I know you from long ago. And I said, kind of like a little on the egotistical side, like, yeah, like, what's my name? And he says, your name is, I call you a Meniton. And I said, well, why is that? He said, look it up. So I kept looking it up and looking it up. Finally, it kind of pieced together in different ways. The Meniton means ones whose prayers are effectual. And it made sense because my late mom used to say, what you're going to find out is sometimes you can't pray for yourself. But when you get your ego out the way and you pray for other people, things start popping for them. So I thought about that. I said, okay, I have to something to do with prayers. And that was in 2006, and then he kind of faded out. And then in 2009, he really came through very strongly. I could feel his presence. I was having visitations. I was having remembrances of walking around in ancient Egypt with him. And he called me like an adopted son to him. And he said, you're going to follow me to my solar temple. I'm not staying over here. And I followed him there. And that's how I also met Nefertiti. And he had a great deal to do with crystals back then, gemstones. And I said to myself, is it possible that all this stuff that I'm teaching is what I may have learned from you? And he said, yes. And I said, and these other things, these meditations that I'm learning, do they come from Nefertiti? And he says, yes. And I said, so what do I do with all of this? He said, when the time is right, you'll be teaching others. You've already taught them. You just haven't remembered that you taught them. And he says, and any person that gets connected to you, they were here as well. And that's how that basically started to come together. Here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in 20, 2018, after I put my first book up on, um, which was Dancing in the Light of Divine Grace, I put it up on Amazon. And then in June, he came to me and he was literally standing over me in my bedroom. And I would say, like, these occurrences I'm not comfortable with. Can you knock? Just only wake up and you're like right in my face. He says, I need you to go to your computer now. I have something to give you. And he started downloading to me. And that's how I wrote the book. There were no notes, no nothing, just every day for 3 days, actually for 3 months, from June to September, morning and night, at the wee hours of the morning, he gave me all this information. I eventually got his information out, which was 13 chapters. And then in January, Nefertiti came to me in a joking manner, and she says, you and Ahkenaten always think it's the men's club. It's not. I was there too teaching, and my book is an extension of his book. And I asked her, well, what would be the title? She said, you're going to treat it like a gift. And then when I woke up that morning, I said, she just gave me the title, the gift.
Mhm.
And I sat down and prayed. I fasted for like a week or two. And she woke me up in the middle of the night and she says, are you ready? You can write this book in 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, it was done. And that's how they both came together. It seems like everybody that researches them on some level, when they go to try to get information, my two books pop up. So my book is in the UK, it's in Ireland somewhere. Someone else has found Nefertiti, London, England. People have found Akhenaten just using my book. So
Yeah,
somehow,
because when I was out there doing the research, there's not a lot of information about Nefertiti. It's about what does she look like? Th those type of videos. But as far as her life and,
Hmm.
and to have it channeled directly from her,
Hmm.
that's not out there. And so, and the books, I read them both are fascinating. They're the type of material that you got to read over and over,
Yeah, yeah,
to
they're
to
packed,
get a
and
feel for it.
one of the things they did tell me to be aware of, especially with Ahkenaten, he says, "Dear brother, many people are going to say I'm Ahkenaten, I'm Akhenaten." And so I'm going to tell you something. Neither one of us have come back, and there's a reason for that. Because the Amun priesthood today is known as the Men in Black. And if anybody's out there saying they are us, they're going to come directly to them, and they're going to put them through their paces, and they're not going to like it. So if you
Mhm.
see anybody who says that, if you could talk to them and tell them not to claim that for their own safety. And I've had one or two people already out of the past couple of years since the books have been written saying, I want to tell the world I'm Akhenaten. And I'm sitting there, you can't do that. That says what it is they have seated themselves in each one of us, just like your mother and father did. You got some energy from your mother, and you got some energy from your father, or probably a distant relative, but you are not exactly that person. I said, you can't say that, and please don't say that because you want to live. Because when these people come after you, they're not going to be nice.
Okay. Um, the next question I have
Mhm.
is you made a huge move from the New Jersey, New York area all the way over there to Albuquerque.
Yes.
Was numerology involved with that? Astrocartography, or were you nudged by your spirit team, or how did that come about?
Well, the very interesting factor, numerology came in toward the end when I actually made the decision, but it was my late mother. See, she passed May 13th, 1981. She was August 11th, 1918 is her birthday. Um, she told me in that prior to taking me to her circle of friends, having me drive to meet her circle of friends, she said that she was in the processes of transitioning. She didn't know how it was going to happen, but she was going to transition within 2 years. And she said, her favorite thing every Saturday morning that I did with her was we watched cartoons together.
Oh,
And she loved Bugs Bunny. So I just made breakfast for the both of us. We're sitting down cackling, and it's that part where you see Bugs Bunny furring through the desert by the cactus trees, thing plants, and he pops up and he says, "I think I'm going to visit my brother Irving in Albuquerque." And she turns around and she says, "Yep, that's where you're going. That's your home." And I go, "Where the heck is Albuquerque?" She says, "No, Albuquerque." She says, "Remember, I told you you might have been born here on Long Island, but you're not going to pass away here. This is not your home. You've had so much difficulties, people bothering you. There's going to be even more that's going to happen. You'll survive enough of it, and then you will come to New Jersey." She says, "But when I'm gone, I'll come back every now and then, and I'm gonna give you some signals." And that's how it began, And I was supposed to, out of college, go check out Phoenix, Arizona, or Tucson. And I was going to move there, didn't know anybody. But then my father, who was an alcoholic, and that played more of a part. I said, well, maybe I'm not supposed to go, because then my mom, my brother's married already by that time, and, mom needs some help. and I'm not supposed to go. But that's how that got seated. And then as time went on, I felt this need that I had to move. I worked, did a lot of New York Renaissance fairs with other people that I knew on Long Island. Somehow met a young lady that knew a guy that had a store, metaphysical shop in Wayne, New Jersey called the Wise Man's Bookstore. She gave him my name. And when he called, my message is it is still the same, greetings. I'm in conference with angels and wise men at the moment, but at the sound of the tone and blah, 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 blah. He called several times to hear that whole message, got his secretary on and said, we need to talk to you. Please give us a call. I gave him a call. They invited me out to Wayne, and I did 3 Friday nights in a row, my meditation group. He sat in the audience and he finally said, would you like to start every Friday out here? I know it's a trek, but I'd like you to come do your meditations every Friday. Maybe we'll set up time. You can do readings and workshops every second Saturday. And that's how that began. And then eventually I gave a spiritual teachers a ceremony and award. And I used to do them on Long Island. And I decided to do one more, and that was in Newark, New Jersey, where I was staying at the time, in the Ironbound district. And right after that, my mother and grandmother and father and them came to me in a vision, and they says, "Get ready, get ready. You got 2 years, and this is 2009. So you got 2 years to get ready. You're gonna be gone. You're gonna be in Albuquerque, New Mexico." And
Wow.
so I landed in Albuquerque, New Mexico on Tuesday, November the 15th, 2011. November the 15th is my father's birthday.
Mhm.
So, but every time I get a special message, I always get it around my mother's birthday or the day that she transitioned. There's always some gift that she passes along. And
Every time I talk to you, I'm amazed by the dates that you're able to recall and keep in your head, and
mm,
just like spout those dates off like it's nothing from years and years ago when many of us can't even remember what we did earlier in the day. Um, can you share a little bit about what you think, speaking of numerology,
mhm.
the year of 2025? It's already been a doozy so far,
Oh, yes.
um, that can help us, maybe some tidbits of information that can help us navigate this year with some joy and some more ease.
Yes, yes. Well, um, since I like to deal with unconditional love, the principle of unconditional love and grace, which I refer to as divine grace, we need to stay as focused as much as we can on clearing ourselves emotionally and mentally. And it's not going to be easy. It's not even easy for myself. There's days I go like, how much more stuff can be released, out of myself and be clear. But the joyful part is you're lightening your own load. You're forgiving yourself for wherever you are, the things where you felt that you had a lot of errors. 20 in numerology means transformation. We have this whole millennium of 2000 all the way to 2999 is releasing and transforming and rebuilding a better image of ourselves. 25 has to do with being able to seek the truth. But as we seek out the truth, can we become the truth? So we have to find the truth factor inside of ourselves, and we need to start to live it. Now, with all the challenges and all the illusions that we see going on in the world, we need to hang on to those special teachers that we learn things from. For me, it's Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, but one of the main ones have always been the late Reverend Ike, you know.
Mhm.
And I
Okay.
often refer, in fact, before my mother passed away, I had gotten a hold of his book and gave it to my mother. And then I lost my copy, found her copy, and then bought another copy. And I said, this man is still around. And a whole new generation of people are being introduced to him.
Mhm.
So their two teachings have always kept me real stable. So one of the things Dr. Michael Beckwith says, you got to be real, but not realistic. So you got to find the key to your authenticity, and your authenticity to someone else's is slightly different, but you have to find it, and then you got to begin to live it. So I always say, even without their information, I always tell people if you're using numerology, understand that every number is a master number. We have been taught that the master numbers are the double digit numbers, but you're wearing all of these numbers. And all these numbers in your name, your date of birth, the time of your birth, place of birth, where you live, address, phone, all those things are calculating, you're calculating numbers all the time. So, what you want to realize, you are a living, breathing number. And you can use any series of numbers, even numbers that are considered opposition numbers. And I know people say, well, okay, 8 against a 4, how are you going to make it work? I said, well, 8 plus 4 is a 3. There's your balance. Be creative in the moment. We're co
Okay.
creators. So we got to learn how to create. We have to realize, we have to tell ourselves we've been here before on some level. Now we're giving opportunities to flip the switch. And one of the things people need to start studying is what is called quantum jumping, or another way is all of the past lives, all of the future lives are running through your present life. So we don't really die. We go from one. You can find that part of yourself that's wealthy, that's healthy, that's happy in the ethers around you. And when you find, you can dream about that part of yourself so much more that you start drawing it into this life. It starts to overlap. So to find the joy amongst all of this negativity is to remind yourself it's not real as you think. What is real is you, because you're here and you're observing it. But you do possess the key to turn it around.
Mm.
And your spirit guide teams will help you.
Mm. That's really interesting and inspiring. Thank you. Let's turn to meditation practice now. So you've taught meditation for many years, and I've heard you say somewhere that um, a good goal to have when you are meditating with your higher self
Mm-hmm.
is to you dedicate like an hour. And I remember thinking like, damn, an hour? Like that, I can't even imagine that. Like 15 minutes for me is good. But even then, on some days, I'm kind of like, what I got to do, what I got to do. So that is very hard, I think, or challenging to work up to. So
Mm-hmm.
how long did it take for you to be able to dedicate an hour? How often do you do that? Number one.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second part of the question is, what are some of the things that you can share advice for us who are new to, the meditation practice um, to connect better? Um, I know you mentioned before you were going to channel Nefertiti's book that you said a few minutes ago that you fasted for 2 weeks. Is that a good idea for us to do? Um, should we? burn incense, candles? Um, what are some of the things that you would suggest for us?
Okay, well, everything is a frequency unto itself. Not everybody can work with incense. Some people have asthma pretty bad. You have to watch the kind of candles that you work with. If you work with candles, you got to have some type of ventilation going on. So you can use music as a backdrop, and it should be gentle. But but eventually, you want to get beyond the music. The goal is to be able to fall into a state of absolute silence, and you can get there, and eventually all you hear is yourself breathing really deep. You might hear the hum of a light, and that's it. But this is what I tell people to do. Think of uh, 4 weeks, 4 successive weeks. The first week of 7 days, you're just going to sit one time, and you're going to work for 10 minutes a day. The first few days is just getting comfortable how to sit. You know how dogs do, right? They walk around in a circle till they get
Right,
comfortable, then they plop
right.
themselves down. We do the same thing. You got to figure out the best kind of chair to sit on. My advice is don't lay on the bed and try to meditate, because for 10,000 times you've done that, and that tells you to go to sleep. You got to sit up. It's all right sitting with your legs straight out, but you got to have some pillows behind your back, upper back and lower back, so you can be comfortable. So you try about 10 minutes every day. First 5 minutes, you're just trying to learn how to breathe. What is your breathing like? When you breathe, are you going to breathe through your nose all the time? The first thing I tell people to practice is your inhalation and exhalation counts as one full cycle of breathing. So you should inhale through the nose, release the breath through the mouth. The most important thing is do not hold your breath in the beginning, at the top of the inhalation, or at the base of the exhalation. Just want to breathe normal for yourself. Every day, if you can just do 10 minutes, that first 7 days is going to be like getting adjusted to your body weight on a cushion or a firm or soft chair, being able to sit. And I always tell people, have fun with the meditation. Don't try to be like a drill sergeant with yourself. You cannot stop your thoughts, so don't try that. Your thoughts don't always work it, just like your heart is always pumping blood 24/7. You can't stop any of those things. So after the first 7 days, at least once a day, if you can sit for 10 minutes, if you can, try another part of the day. Usually the best times are when you just get up or an hour before you go to sleep. Those are usually
Mhm.
the better times. If you are like many of us, you have a lot of free time, then you can try somewhere between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Put 10 minutes in there. But when you get to the second week, you increase it by 5 minutes, your session. When you get to the third week, you increase it by another five. So by the time you get to that third week, you're doing 20 minutes. When you get to the fourth week, now you're hovering around 25. You see, 25 minutes. So your key meditation time as a beginner is working yourself up to about 20 to 30 minutes. And you're doing your best not to struggle with your breathing. You should journal your experience every day, what it feels like, any thoughts that may have popped into your mind. You need to spend at least, I would say, about 45 to 60 days or more just working with 20 or 30 minutes. What's going to happen is your body is going to tell you, I need more time. And that's when you start sitting a little longer. It is okay to have some water around. I don't. When I teach out here out here in my classes, I tell my students to bring a container of water, because you're using a lot of energy when you're meditating in the beginning. And you can go through that feeling dry lip, dry throat. So you should have some moisture there. Usually, after about 90 days, you're ready to find that one day in the week where you are going to be more disciplined and you're going to go for 45 minutes to an hour, just one day out of the week. Now, some people can't do that. Some they may not be ready, but your body will tell you. You see, you already know how to meditate, you just don't know you know how to meditate. We have done daydreaming before. That's a form of meditation too. Walking is a form of meditation as well. What a person can do in between all of that is when they come home, don't put on any music, nothing. Just walk around at home in absolute silence. That will help you as well. You're trying not to deal with your phone or the computer. Now, if you want to use some incense, I would use something very calming for the mind, like lavender, or better yet, sandalwood. Sandalwood is
Okay.
good for calming the mind. Sage, it's not for everybody. It's a fire energy. Sandalwood is fire, but it's softer. People can use frankincense and myrrh if they want to, but you only need a little bit of incense in the air, not a whole lot. And if you don't want to use incense, you can use oils. If you don't want to use oils, you have gemstones. The thing is don't overcomplicate the session. Your main goal within 6 months is to get to absolute silence, being okay with sitting for yourself. And usually within that fourth, fifth, and sixth month, that's when you might have your guides showing up more often around you. And of course, your higher self is settling in.
Okay.
Yeah. So you don't want to do
What
too
about the fasting part?
well. When that came to me, that was just a nudge from spirit. That's not for
Okay.
everybody. If you're going to fast, maybe 3 days is good enough for a fast. One of the things is my elders used to say, turn a plate down. That's a fast. I said, what do you mean by that? Eat 2 meals a day. One meal you're not eating. So that's something. You might eat a heavier meal, a lighter meal in the daytime, a heavier meal between 11 and 2, and a lighter meal at night or nothing. I've been able to get myself down after 3 years with intermittent fasting to a meal and a half a day. I've been able to do that, and that's quite comfortable. But your body will tell you when you are to do certain things.
Right.
You don't
Right.
force it on yourself. Never
Right.
do that.
Brother Francis, I am so appreciative of you taking all of this time. I know we went over, I told you when I contacted you, it'd be about 30 minutes.
I talk a lot. Sorry.
And no, I love it and, enjoyed every second of it. And I hope that we can do it again. Once I get a couple under my belt,
Hmm.
maybe we can try to do a live or something.
Yes.
Um, that would be interesting to do or to try.
Hmm.
But I so appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Um, and I really hope that we can do it again sometime soon.
Whenever you call, I'll be ready.
I appreciate you. I'm going to stop recording now, but if you could stay on, I have a
Hmm.
question for you. Okay,
Okay.
thank you, everybody. Good night. Love and light to you. Thank you again.